My mother raised her glass to celebrate my sister's 300-guest wedding, smiling proudly in front of the entire room. She tapped the microphone, cleared her throat, and then, with the kind of sweetness that always hid something sharp, she looked directly at me. "Your sister's wedding will be perfect," she said. Then she added loudly, "So, sweetheart, when's your turn?" People laughed softly. Some turned to stare at me. My sister Grace smirked. She expected me to smile and accept the humiliation like I always did. But not this time. Because she didn't know the truth. I took a step forward, lifted my chin, and replied just as loudly. 8 months ago. The room froze. My mother blinked. "What?" "It already happened," I said. "You were invited." I pointed at Grace. "Your favorite daughter threw the invitation in the trash." Before I tell you what happened, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you believe in karma, hit like and subscribe, because this story will prove it. You could feel the shock ripple through the ballroom. Gasps. Confusion. People whispering, "She was married? When? Why didn't we know?" My mother's smile cracked like thin glass. "Elena," she hissed, "don't start." But I didn't start this. She did, years ago, the moment she chose Grace over me in every way that mattered. 8 months earlier, I stood outside a courthouse wearing a simple dress and holding a bouquet of sunflowers Ethan bought me from a street vendor. It wasn't a glamorous wedding. It didn't have a ballroom or a string quartet. No gold archway. No designer cake. But it was ours. It was supposed to be small but meaningful, with the people who mattered. Mom, Dad, Grace. 2 close cousins. That's all. I hand-delivered invitations 1 week before the ceremony. I hugged my mother as I gave her hers. She barely looked up from her phone. Grace took her envelope and said, "Really, a courthouse? That's one way to do it, I guess." I ignored the insult. I shouldn't have. Because I later found out what really happened. Grace threw my wedding invitation in the trash and told my mother. She's rushing. Because she's insecure. She shouldn't get married before me. And my mother agreed. She didn't ask me about it. She didn't call. She didn't show any excitement. She just accepted Grace's decision like it was the law. On the morning of my wedding, my phone stayed silent. No messages. No support. No "good luck, honey." At noon, standing outside the courthouse, Ethan squeezed my hands. "Your family's still not coming?" he asked gently. I forced a smile. "Maybe they're running late." They weren't. At 12:17 p.m., my mother texted, "We can't make it. Busy." I stared at the screen so long it blurred. No apology. No explanation. Not even a lie big enough to soften the blow. Just busy. Ethan saw my face and kissed my forehead. "We're getting married because we love each other," he whispered. "That's enough." And he was right. But the pain? It didn't disappear. It sank, deeper, heavier, into a part of me I pretended didn't exist. We got married with a court-appointed witness. We took photos on someone's iPhone. We celebrated by splitting a slice of grocery store cake. And I went home that night pretending I didn't care. But I did. I cared more than he knew. More than anyone knew. Back to my sister's wedding. My mother's face was red and tight, cornered by the truth she thought I'd never dare to speak. "Elena," she whispered harshly, "this is not the place." "Oh, it's exactly the place," I replied calmly, "because this is where you chose to humiliate me." Grace stepped forward, her perfect gown shimmering under the lights. She forced a smile. "That invitation wasn't real. Mom and I thought it was a joke." A joke. My entire marriage, a joke to her. I stared at her, feeling the years of swallowed pain pile up. "Yes, Grace," I said, "you made sure it felt like a joke. You threw it out because you didn't want me married first." "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "Why would I care about your timing?" Because she always needed to be first. Best. Preferred. I didn't say it. I didn't need to. Aunt Laura gasped softly. "Grace," Is this true? Grace's smile cracked. My mother tried to rescue her. Elena exaggerates. She always does. I'm sure Grace didn't throw anything away. I pulled out my phone. I opened a photo, and I held it up for them to see. A picture I took 8 months ago, Grace's bathroom trash can, my crushed wedding invitation sitting right on top. The room erupted. People whispering. People staring at Grace. People looking at my mother like they were seeing her for the first time. Grace whispered, "You weren't supposed to know about that." "But I do," I said. "And now everyone does." My mother's eyes flashed with anger. "How dare you ruin your sister's wedding?" she snapped. I almost laughed. "I'm not ruining it," I said calmly. "I'm telling the truth you buried." Then I turned to the crowd, the 300 guests she invited, none of whom I had been good enough to include in my own wedding. This isn't about jealousy. This is about respect. I looked directly at my mother. "You asked me when my turn was. So here's your real answer. My turn was 8 months ago. And you chose not to show up." Silence. Uncomfortable, heavy, undeniable silence. My mother struggled for words. Grace looked like she wanted to disappear. And I, for the first time in my life, felt free. Because the truth wasn't the problem. Their behavior was, and I was finally done pretending otherwise. The ballroom had gone silent. Grace stood stiffly on the stage, her perfect wedding makeup cracking as panic spread across her face. My mother kept trying to smile, but her lips twitched like someone struggling to stop a tremor. Then Grace snapped. "You're jealous," she shouted. "That's all this is, Elena. You couldn't handle that one day wasn't about you." Her voice echoed off the crystal chandeliers. I didn't raise mine. "Grace," I said quietly, "you threw away my wedding invitation." She clenched her fists. "It wasn't a real invitation." My aunt whispered loudly from the back, "Why wouldn't it be real? She got married." Grace's voice cracked. "Because she didn't tell us." "I did," I said calmly. "I handed it to you." Grace looked at Mom, pleading, "Mom, say something." My mother stepped forward, trying to regain control of the narrative like she always did. "Elena," she said sharply, "you're overreacting. Grace didn't throw anything away. You're being dramatic in front of all these people." I pulled out my phone again and showed the picture. The crumpled envelope. The gold lettering. My name. The date. The trash can. "Is this dramatic?" I asked. My mother's eyes narrowed. "Elena, that could be anything. You probably staged that." I actually laughed. Not from humor. From disbelief. "You really think I staged proof of my own wedding invitation to embarrass Grace?" Mom lifted her chin. "You always felt overshadowed by her." There it was. The line she'd used my entire life. Not "you're hurt." Not "you were excluded." Not "I'm sorry." Just, "You're jealous of your sister." I looked around the room and saw faces change, people who realized this wasn't a sister fight. This was a family pattern. Grace's future mother-in-law whispered something to her husband, shaking her head disapprovingly. My mother noticed. Her face darkened. She stepped closer to me, lowering her voice but not enough to hide the venom. "You are trying to ruin Grace's wedding." "No," I said. "You did that when you made this moment about humiliating me." She blinked. "You asked when my turn was," I continued. "You asked it to mock me, to compare us. Like you always do." Grace's voice rose again, desperate. "You could have told us you were really getting married. You didn't give us a chance." "I gave you a chance," I said. "You threw it away." Grace clenched her fist so hard her knuckles turned white. "Why would you even get married without us?" My throat tightened, not from pain but from the memory. "Because you made it clear I didn't matter to you." Grace scoffed. "That's ridiculous. We're family." "Then why didn't you come?" Silence again. This time deeper. Heavier. My mother stepped between us. "Elena, enough. You're making a scene." "No," I said. "I'm making boundaries." That word made her jerk like she'd been slapped. Before she could respond, a voice came from behind me. A familiar one. "Is everything okay here?" I turned. Ethan, my husband. He had arrived early to the wedding rehearsal because he knew how anxious I felt about facing my family again. But he didn't expect this. His eyes scanned the room, taking in the tension, the shock, the tears. Grace froze when she saw him. "Oh," she whispered. "You came." Ethan walked to my side without hesitation, putting his arm around me. "Of course I came. I told Elena I'd support her today." He kissed my temple gently. My mother flinched like the affection irritated her. Grace looked at Ethan with a smile that didn't belong on a bride. Too soft, too familiar. She cleared her throat. "So, this is your husband," she said stiffly. "Yes," I said. "The husband you said I wasn't special enough to get before you." Gasps. My mother's face turned stone cold. "Elena." Grace's eyes widened in horror. "I never said that." "You did," I replied. "Mom heard it too." My mother sucked in a sharp breath. "I don't recall that." "Of course you don't," I said. "You only remember the things Grace says that make her look good." Grace pointed at me. "You're trying to make me look horrible." "You did that yourself," I said. Ethan turned to my mother, his voice low, protective. "Why weren't you at our wedding?" My mother stuttered. We had commitments." Ethan nodded slowly. "You told Elena Busy?" Grace jumped in. "We didn't think she meant it." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Why would she invite you if she didn't mean it?" Grace went silent. I took Ethan's hand. "Baby," I said, "tell them how many chairs you saved." He nodded. "We saved 6. We waited for 45 minutes. No one showed. No one texted. No one called. People around us murmured, shaking their heads. Grace's mother-in-law whispered, "How shameful," loud enough for several tables to hear. Grace paled. My mother snapped, "Stop judging our family dynamics." "No one's judging your dynamics," Ethan said calmly. "They're judging your choices." Grace pointed at Ethan, anger bubbling. "You don't understand our family. Elena exaggerates everything." Ethan smiled, not kindly. "Actually, she under-exaggerates." Mom's jaw dropped. Grace sputtered. "What does that mean?" Ethan looked around the room. "It means she protects your image. Even when you hurt her. Even when you treat her like a backup daughter. Even when you pretend not to see her." My mother gasped. "How dare you?" Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. She deserved better than the way you responded to her wedding. Better than the silence. Better than the disrespect. Grace stepped forward, desperate now. "Elena, please, don't do this. Not today. My wedding." I finally snapped. "Grace, you don't get to cry wedding after how you treated mine." Grace's lip trembled. "I didn't think it was real." "That's because you never think anything about me is real," I said quietly. She blinked, and for the first time, she looked scared. Not of me, of the truth. I took Ethan's hand. "You know what the saddest part is?" I said softly. "I thought that if I ever got married, you'd be happy for me." Grace opened her mouth, but nothing came out. My mother stepped forward again, voice low and firm. "Elena, apologize." I stared at her. "For what?" I asked. "For embarrassing your sister." I let out a breath. Long, tired. She embarrassed herself. And then I said the sentence that broke whatever fantasy they had about who I was. "From today on, you don't get to belittle me and call it love." My mother froze. Grace's tears spilled. The family watched, silent. I took Ethan's arm. "We're leaving." My mother lunged forward. "Elena, you come back here." I turned back only once. "Mom, you asked me when my turn was." My voice was steady. "And now you know." Ethan opened the ballroom doors, and we walked out, leaving them with the truth they avoided for years. Ethan and I walked out of the ballroom, the heavy doors closing behind us with a loud thud. the kind of thud that feels like the end of something you can't go back to. We made it halfway down the hallway before we heard it. "Elena, stop!" My mother's heels pounded the floor like she was chasing a criminal. I didn't turn. Not at first. She grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin. "You will not embarrass this family and walk away." I gently removed her hand. "This family embarrassed me first." "That was years ago," she snapped. "Let it go." 8 months, I corrected. "It hasn't even been a year." My mother's eyes hardened. "You're making your sister look bad on the most important weekend of her life." I stared at her. "This isn't about her wedding. This is about how you treat your daughters." She scoffed. "Stop playing victim." Ethan stepped in front of me, voice low and razor sharp. "She's not playing anything. She's telling the truth." My mother's nostrils flared. "Oh, I see. So now you get to have an opinion about our family?" Ethan didn't blink. "When you treat her like this?" "Yes." My mother pointed a finger at him. "You're manipulating her against us." He laughed, not cruelly, but out of disbelief. "She doesn't need my help to see what's obvious." Before she could reply, another voice echoed down the hall. A trembling voice. "Mom, stop." Grace. She had followed us, dress lifted slightly so she wouldn't trip, makeup streaked from tears. The moment our eyes met, she started crying harder. "Elena," she whispered, "please don't leave. We need to talk." I crossed my arms. "You could have talked 8 months ago." Grace shook her head desperately. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You threw away my wedding invitation. I didn't think it was real." "You never think I am real," I said quietly. Grace covered her mouth, sobbing. My mother wrapped an arm around her. There, sweetheart. She's just emotional." I felt Ethan stiffen beside me. "Martha," he said, "stop dismissing her feelings like she's a child." My mother's head jerked toward him. "You don't get to talk to me that way." He stared back. "You talked to Elena that way for years." Grace stepped between us, voice cracking. "Can everyone just stop?" We all fell silent. She turned to me with shaking shoulders. "Elena, you're right. I did throw it away." Her voice broke. "But I didn't know it would hurt you like this." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't know a sister would be hurt that her family skipped her wedding?" Grace covered her face. "I thought you were rushing. I thought it wasn't serious. I thought—" "You thought everything except the truth," I said. "That I'm a person. That my marriage mattered." Grace sobbed harder. "It wasn't jealousy," she whispered. "It was fear." That surprised me. "Fear of what?" She dropped her hands, tears streaming. "That you'd leave me behind." I blinked. "What?" "That you'd grow up first," she whispered. "That you'd move on. That you wouldn't need me anymore." I stared at her. Grace? Insecure? It didn't add up. But she kept talking. "You were always stronger than you realized. You left home first. You got your own place. You got a great job. And I'm still the one Mom babies." Mom stiffened. "Grace." "No, Mom. Let me talk." Grace looked at me. "When I saw your wedding invitation, I panicked. I thought, if she gets married first, what does that make me?" Her voice cracked. "So I threw it away. Not because I hated you, not because I wanted to hurt you. Because I felt like I'd lose my place in this family." My breath caught. Because for the first time, she didn't sound like the golden daughter. She sounded like someone trapped. I softened a little, but not enough to forget what happened. "You could have told me that," I said. "I know," she whispered. "But Mom." My mother cut in sharply. "Don't you dare blame me." Grace looked at her, something changing in her eyes. "I'm not blaming you," she said softly. "I'm saying I never got to be anything except perfect, and Elena never got to be anything except wrong." My mother froze. Everyone froze. Because Grace, the perfect daughter, had finally spoken the truth. She continued, voice shaking but honest. "You only love me when I make you look good. And you only tolerate Elena when she stays quiet." My mother's lips trembled. That's not true. Grace stepped back. It is, Mom. And you know it. The hallway fell silent. And then, slowly, Grace turned toward me. I'm sorry, she whispered, for ruining your day, for making you feel like you didn't matter. I was selfish, and insecure, and wrong. I felt a pinch in my chest. This wasn't the dramatic apology I expected. It was real, messy, human. And then she added something that hit me even harder. Ethan deserved better, and so did you. I swallowed. Grace, I can't undo what I did, she said quietly. But I can admit it, and I can change. She took a step closer to me. Please don't give up on me. My throat tightened. But before I could answer, Dad appeared at the end of the hall. He looked pale, almost frightened. Girls, he said, voice low, I need to say something. Mom's head whipped toward him. Don't. Not here. Dad ignored her. He walked closer, hands shaking slightly. Elena, he said softly, I knew about the invitation. My stomach dropped. What? Dad swallowed hard. I found it in the trash. I asked your mother about it. She told me not to get involved. My mother's face turned scarlet. Robert, stop. But he kept going. And she said, you didn't really want us there. My knees almost buckled. Mom whispered fiercely, Robert, enough! But Dad didn't stop. He looked at me with regret in his eyes. I wanted to come, he said. I wanted to be there for you. I just let them convince me it wasn't my place. Silence. Absolute silence. Then he whispered, I'm sorry, honey. Mom gasped, horrified. Grace cried harder. Ethan squeezed my hand. And I felt something crack open inside me. Not pain. Truth. Truth that had been buried for years. My father stepped back, like confessing cost him something. Like he had been holding it in for too long. Mom finally snapped. Enough of this emotional drama. Elena ruined this day. No, Dad said firmly. You did. Mom spun around like she'd been slapped. Dad took a breath. Elena deserved a family that cared. Not one that competed with her. Not one that dismissed her. Not one that ignored her wedding. His voice thickened. And Grace deserved better too. Grace looked stunned. Ethan whispered beside me, This is the first honest conversation your family has ever had. And he was right. I finally spoke, my voice small but steady. I didn't leave my family today. My family left me a long time ago. The hallway fell silent. Mom sank into a chair, shaking her head. Grace stood frozen in place. Dad closed his eyes like he was praying for forgiveness. And Ethan held me like he wasn't letting go. This wasn't the end. This was the shift. Because the real decision was coming next. The hallway felt heavier than the ballroom. Raw truth hung between us, too thick to breathe, too honest to ignore. My mother sat frozen in the chair, her eyes darting between Dad, Grace, Ethan, and me, like she didn't recognize the family in front of her. Dad rubbed his hands together nervously, the weight of his confession still fresh. Grace wiped her tears in silence. Ethan's hand tightened around mine. And me? For once, I wasn't the quiet one. The overlooked one. The wrong one. For the first time, I held the power in a family that once drowned me. Mom finally stood, gripping the wall behind her. Elena, she whispered, you've made your point. That wasn't the point, I said calmly. The point is that for the first time, you're hearing me. She swallowed hard. You don't know how hard it is to keep this family together. Grace let out a soft, painful laugh. Mom, you never kept us together. You kept us competitive. My mother's lips trembled. That's not fair. It's true, Grace whispered. You gave me everything. And you gave Elena expectations. Mom's eyes filled with tears she didn't want anyone to see. She turned away. But I didn't let her escape the truth. You asked me when my turn was, I said softly. because to you my life only matters when it can be compared to Grace. She didn't deny it. Not this time. Instead, she whispered, I didn't want to lose you. My breath caught. What? She shook her head, more tears forming. You're the one who leaves, Elena. You always were. You grew up faster. You moved out first. You stopped depending on me. I stared at her. You pushed me out, I said softly, and then punished me for leaving. She winced like I'd struck her. Dad stepped forward. Martha. She's right. Mom looked at him with wounded betrayal. You're taking her side? That's the problem, Dad said. There shouldn't be sides. He turned to me. Elena, you deserved better than what we gave you. Those words, from the one parent who always stayed silent, hit me harder than any insult ever did. For the first time, he wasn't protecting my mother's image. He was protecting me. Grace wiped her cheeks. Elena, she whispered, I need to say something too. I looked at her cautiously. She stepped closer, voice trembling. You were always the strong one. And that scared me. Because Mom made me feel like the only way I could be important was if you didn't shine. My throat tightened. I never wanted to outshine you, I said quietly. I know, she whispered. But I treated you like competition instead of a sister. She swallowed hard. I stole your invitation because I didn't want you to be first. I didn't want you to look like you were ahead of me. It was cruel, but it was honest. Grace looked at my husband. Ethan, I'm sorry I didn't show up. I'm sorry I didn't support you. I'm sorry I didn't treat our sister with the respect she deserved. He nodded slowly. Thank you, he said. But this apology isn't about me. It's about Elena. Grace turned back to me. I don't deserve your forgiveness, she whispered. But I want to earn it. I felt the sting of old wounds, years of being ignored, judged, belittled, overshadowed. And I felt something else too. The freedom to choose for myself. For once, Mom must have sensed I was thinking. She stood straighter, wiping her eyes quickly. Elena, honey, this is Grace's big weekend. Can we please not ruin it? I stared at her. That sentence is exactly why I'm done. Mom blinked. What? You only care about perfection, I said. You never care about truth. Her jaw clenched. I care about you. No, I said softly. You care about how I look standing next to Grace. She flinched. Grace looked down. Dad closed his eyes. Ethan rubbed my shoulder gently. Mom whispered, What do you want me to do? Say sorry? Yes, I said, steady and calm. For once in your life, look me in the eyes and say you're sorry. Not for the wedding. Not for today. For everything. Mom stayed quiet. Too quiet. She looked at Grace. Then at Dad. Then at Ethan. And finally at me. Elena. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I held my breath. For missing your wedding, she said. For not showing up for you, the way you needed. A tear dropped onto her hand. For making you feel small. For comparing you. For not listening. For not loving you the way you deserved. Grace cried silently. Dad nodded slowly. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough. But it was more than she had ever given me. I whispered, Thank you for saying it. Mom took a shaky breath. Elena, can we try again? As a family? I looked at Ethan. He didn't speak. He let me choose. For once, everyone did. I stood in the center of that cold hallway, surrounded by years of pain, years of neglect, years of favoritism, and years of wanting something I never got. Respect. And then I did something none of them expected. I said, We're not walking back in there. Mom gasped. Why? Because this isn't about Grace's wedding, I said. This is about healing something broken. And we can't fix it in front of 300 guests. Grace nodded slowly. She stepped forward. Then let's go somewhere quiet, she said softly. No cameras. No people. Just us. I looked at her, at Mom, at Dad, at Ethan, and for the first time in this whole mess, I didn't feel alone. "I'll go," I said, "but I set the rules." They nodded. I took Ethan's hand. "Rule 1, I said. No lies. Rule 2, no blaming. Rule 3, no comparisons." Mom swallowed, nodding. "Rule 4, I added, voice steady. You treat me like I matter." Grace whispered, "You do." Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "You always have. You just couldn't see it under the mess we created." Mom whispered, "We want to fix it." And I felt something shift, gentle, fragile, real. We walked toward the side exit, leaving the ballroom noise behind us. Tomorrow, Grace would still have her wedding. But tonight was mine. The night I finally got my family to see me. Not the forgotten daughter. Not the shadow. Not the backup. Just Elena. We walked out of the wedding venue through a small service door. Mom, Dad, Grace, Ethan, and me. The hallway noise faded behind us, until all that remained was our footsteps echoing in an empty, quiet side lounge with soft lights and white leather couches. For the first time in my entire life, my family sat with me, not above me, not against me, and not comparing me to Grace. I sat across from Mom. Grace sat beside her, staring at her hands. Dad sat beside me. Ethan never let go of mine. The silence felt thick, heavy, real. Mom was the first to break it. "Elena," she said softly, "you asked for honesty. So, I should tell you something I never planned to." Grace looked up sharply. Dad exhaled, rubbing his forehead. My heart tightened. "What is it?" I asked. Mom swallowed. "You always thought I favored Grace." "And maybe I did." Grace blinked. Mom held up a hand. "But not for the reason you think." I frowned. "Then why?" Her voice softened into something I had never heard before. Exhausted honesty. "You were never the one who needed me." The sentence hit me so hard, I forgot to breathe. "What?" I whispered. Mom looked at her hands. "Elena, you were always strong, independent, fierce. You walked earlier, talked earlier, solved your own problems. You didn't ask for help. You didn't need me the way Grace did." Grace shifted uncomfortably. Mom continued. "And instead of being proud of that, I got scared." Dad nodded sadly. "You distanced yourself," he added quietly. "Not because you didn't love her, but because you didn't know how to parent someone who didn't rely on you." Mom wiped her eyes. "I tried to make Grace feel secure. I lifted her up constantly. I praised her. I protected her. But I didn't realize I was pushing you down to do it." My chest tightened. "You made me the problem," I whispered. "And I was wrong," she said quickly. "So wrong. But I didn't know how to fix it without hurting Grace. And I didn't know how to talk to you without feeling like you didn't need me." Grace looked stunned. "Mom, you chose me because Elena was too strong." Mom nodded. "I was afraid she'd outgrow us." I felt something sharp twist in me. Not anger, not sadness, but a deep ache. "I never outgrew you," I said softly. "You pushed me out." Mom covered her mouth. Grace whispered, "Mom, that's why you let me get away with everything." "Yes," Mom said. "You needed me more, or I thought you did. I didn't want you to feel less." Grace stared at her. "I didn't want Elena to disappear from the family," Mom whispered. But in trying to keep her close, I pushed her away. I swallowed hard. This was the truth I waited years to hear. But it didn't erase what happened. Dad reached for my hand. "Elena, your mother and I failed you." I looked at him, really looked, and for once, he wasn't hiding behind softer words. "You didn't speak up," I said quietly. "Not once." He nodded painfully. "You're right," he said. "I was cowardly. I let your mother lead everything because I didn't want to start fights, but that wasn't fair to you." Grace touched my knee gently. "Elena, I didn't want to steal your wedding. I didn't want to be the villain in your story." But you were, I said softly. You made me feel invisible. Grace's voice cracked. I know. And I hate myself for it. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She breathed shakily. Elena, I was terrified. If you got married first, I thought Mom would love you more. Mom gasped. Grace! Grace shrugged helplessly. That's how you raised us, Mom. You made everything about order. Who hit milestones first? Who did things better? Who you bragged about? Mom looked away, ashamed. Grace reached for my hand. I'm not scared anymore, she whispered. I don't want to compete with you. I want you in my life, as my sister, not my rival. Tears hit her dress. I squeezed her hand back. Finally we were speaking the same language. Ethan leaned close to me and whispered, Whatever you decide next, I'm with you. And I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore, or humiliation, or exposing the truth. This was about reclaiming myself. I turned to my family. You all asked what I want, I said softly. Here it is. They leaned in. I want peace. I want boundaries. I want respect. Mom nodded hard. Dad swallowed. Grace closed her eyes in relief. But I'm not going back into that ballroom, I said. Not today. Grace nodded immediately. You don't have to, she whispered. No one deserves to be pressured into pretending everything's perfect. Mom frowned. But what will people think? Dad cut her off tiredly. Martha, enough, let it go. Grace suddenly stood. She wiped her cheeks and said with surprising strength, I'll adjust the schedule. Mom, you'll read a different speech. And Elena, she looked at me carefully, you don't have to attend the reception unless you want to. I blinked. You're okay with that? She nodded. Yes. I just want you to feel safe with us again. And that won't happen in front of 300 people. Mom whispered, Grace, sweetheart. Grace shook her head. No, Mom. Today can still be perfect, but not by pretending Elena doesn't exist. Her truth matters too. For the first time, my sister defended me. My chest tightened with emotion I hadn't felt in years. I stood and hugged her, small, tentative, but real. She hugged me back harder than I expected. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, I said, but things have to change. They will, she promised. We separated. Dad hugged me next. Mom hesitated at first. Then slowly, carefully, she opened her arms. I stepped into them. Her voice broke in my ear. I failed you, she whispered. I want to do better. I nodded into her shoulder. I know. We pulled apart. The family stood there quietly, holding a moment I thought we'd never have. Ethan intertwined his fingers with mine. You ready to go home? He asked. I smiled. Yes. I turned to my family. I'm not running away, I said softly. I'm stepping back, for myself. Grace nodded. Dad nodded. Mom wiped her tears. And for the first time, they let me. Ethan and I walked toward the exit. Hey, Grace called softly. I turned. She smiled weakly. Thank you. For telling the truth. I smiled back. Thank you. For finally hearing it. And with that, I walked out of the building, not broken, not bitter, but free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I wasn't the backup. I wasn't second place. I was Elena. Loved. Seen. Chosen. By the man beside me. And finally, by myself.